I have always been someone that struggles with being a beginner. Um, and it's not because I don't like to begin things or start things. It's more so I don't like being bad at things. And this has been something that I've struggled with for probably my entire life. And I think this year I have finally come to terms with the fact that the more that I continue to try to be perfect and to execute this exact vision that I have in my mind, regardless of what it is that I'm creating, whether it's like making the perfect matcha or creating an aesthetic and beautiful and informative YouTube video, the more that I put my high and sometimes a bit unrealistic expectations on my shoulders, the harder it will be for me to execute, the harder it will be for me to progress and to learn and to even get to the place that I want to be. So, today I want to talk about allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to be beginners because it's a lot harder than I think it sounds in theory, especially if you're someone who battles with perfectionism, or if you would perhaps identify as like an ambitious overachiever. I think it can be really hard to allow yourself to be bad at something before you get good at it. And so today I want to explore this idea of giving ourselves permission to be beginners and how, if you are battling with something like perfectionism, how we can overcome that fear and just go after the things that we want, even if it doesn't look or turn out exactly the way that we envisioned or intended it to. So let's begin by diving into the perfectionist mind. Again, as someone who still struggles with perfectionism on a daily basis, I think I have a pretty good grasp of what is going on in my mind, and maybe you'll be able to relate to my experience. But I think the first thing I want to acknowledge is that being a perfectionist or dealing with perfectionism, because I don't really like labels, it's not necessarily a horrible thing. And I say this because while there are many harmful consequences of succumbing to your perfectionism, there is something to be said about, excuse me, I have cat hair on my lip. Ew. There is something to be said about wanting something to be beautiful or to be impactful or to be meaningful in the way that you envision it. There's just something really fulfilling about having an idea in your mind and then being able to create that tangibly in this world. There is something really fulfilling about that. I also think it's important to have standards when it comes to whatever you're putting out. You know, if you're an entrepreneur, for example, like your brand identity, your personal brand, the way that you market, the way that you're perceived by your audience is really important. And so it makes sense that you would want that to be perfect. You want everything that you put out to be perfect and perfectly aligned with the consumer that you're trying to, get a hold of. So there's like a few reasons and like a few motivations as to why people with perfectionism struggle with it so much. I think ultimately, we want to create something meaningful, we want to create something impactful, but we have a specific vision and a specific way that we want it done. And that's where we put ourselves into that process. Anyone can come on YouTube, right, and make a video about being a perfectionist, but the way that I'm speaking about it and the way that I've set up my space and the music that I'm going to pick and the editing that I'm going to do on this footage, that is my signature mark. That is going to be representative of my style and the vision that I had for this video, because I am aiming this video at a specific audience and at a specific group of people that are going to resonate with me. And me putting my own flair on it is what's going to make it great, right? So I think, that relationship between having standards and being a perfectionist is something worth exploring and understanding. I think another, layer here is like having this desire to execute a project in a way that really embodies the vision that you had. Um, that's not a terrible thing. I think that's a really great thing. And I think the issue is we kind of set these aspirational goals, these aspirational expectations when we may not necessarily have this skill set yet because we haven't really tried it yet. We also see our work as a reflection of ourselves. So if the work isn't good, if the work doesn't feel appealing, if it doesn't resonate with other people, if the footage is blurry, then what does that say about us? What does that say about our skill? What does it say about our technique? What does it say about our identity, right? I think a lot of us tie our value to our productivity. We tie our value to the things that we produce, the things that we create, and the ideas that we have. Um, and, that in itself is a whole other topic that I would love to get into because I've worked really hard to no longer place my value in work as someone who was a huge workaholic and someone that really did place a lot of my value in where I was in my career. So we can have another conversation on that. But I think that is a really important point to note. You probably are asking yourself, what does this say about me if this work isn't good? I suck. I'm the worst. I'm so bad at this. I shouldn't even try. Those are the thoughts that go through your mind when you're working on something and it doesn't come out the way you want it to. And I think that that's a sign for you to kind of go deeper into yourself and understand why you're tying your value to these ideas and to these things that has nothing to do with who you are as a person, or you having a limited skill set doesn't make you inadequate. It just makes you a beginner and someone that needs to continue to learn. So there's definitely some mindset shifts that needs to happen there. Happy to have a conversation about that in another video because I think that's a really important part of this. Why is perfectionism to some degree relatively harmful? The first thing, it can stop you from starting things. How many times have you sat there, made an entire plan about what you're going to do, how you're going to execute, how you're going to accomplish goals? You set timelines, you like put things on your calendar, you created an entire Notion page to keep you disciplined and on track to accomplishing this goal. And then it just never seemed to come into fruition because you spent so much time thinking about how you're going to do it, but no time actually executing it, right? I think there is definitely a huge correlation between procrastination and perfectionism. A lot of times it's the fear of it not coming out perfect that causes us to not even try in the first place. And it's ironic because that fear of failure is ultimately what causes us to fail because we don't try. Another thing, and this happens to me a lot, you can overwhelm yourself with your high standards and your high expectations. I do this very frequently. My boyfriend recently had a conversation with me about this. Like, I had been inconsistent in the gym for a bit, and I was like, okay, I'm going to hit the gym like 3 or 4 times a week starting next week. He's like, don't do that to yourself. Like, that's unrealistic. You need to start slow and build your way up because what happens is you're going to overwhelm yourself. You set these high expectations, you are able to meet them for maybe a short amount of time, and then after a while you come to realize that it's not sustainable, and then because it's not sustainable you stop being consistent or you start doing a bad job, and suddenly now you think you're a worthless piece of shit, right? I think that as a perfectionist we aren't necessarily realistic about how we're going to accomplish those goals because sometimes those goals are so idealistic or so aspirational. But I also will say that you can have a plan and you can think about something as much as you want and you can plan out every single minute detail. But if you're not acting on it, you're ultimately wasting your time. And I think that it's really important that we align our expectations with our current abilities and the phase of the process that we are in. If you are, working on, let's say you're trying to eat healthier, you know, cold turkey cutting out coffee, sugar, I don't know what else you're supposed to cut out, like smoking, drinking. Yes, that seems like the right thing to do and the best thing to do. However, if these are habits that you've had for years and years, it's going to be really hard, especially on your body, to just completely eliminate that stuff out of the blue. Like, it's going to be really hard on your body and it might be hard on you mentally as well. So that's why a lot of people need to wean themselves off of these things, right? Like, for me with caffeine, I've grown a little bit more of like a dependence on it over the past couple of years, but I've slowly been removing myself from it, where I used to want to drink it every day. Now I drink it maybe like 3 times a week. It's still better than 7 days a week. And that's how you know you're making that progress, because you find yourself not craving it as much or choosing healthier alternatives. And you still feel proud of yourself, even though you're not 100% off of it or you haven't met your goal completely. You're on your way there. So I think that's another thing that we should take into consideration as well. Like, it's not healthy to have these unrealistic expectations if we're not in a space where we're going to be able to meet them. And so I think it's just important to meet yourself where you are at. That doesn't mean that you're not going to progress and get to that point. You absolutely will. But trying and acting on the plan is the most important part of it. And another harmful consequence of perfectionism is you're taking yourself out of the present. When you're a perfectionist, and I can give you a solid example right now, like before filming this video, I sat and overthink. I sat here and was overthinking for like an hour about how is this video going to turn out? Is the lighting going to be good? Is there going to be noise in the background? Am I going to be able to say my words in an eloquent way? Am I going to be able to be myself on camera? Am I going to come across as awkward or uncomfortable? Am I going to stutter over my words? Am I going to overthink this? Like, all the thoughts, guys, all the thoughts. And the reality is, when you're in that space of overthinking, right, you're acting out of fear. You are feeling uncertain, and it's showing that you're not having trust in yourself and you're not trusting the process. I had to say a little prayer before I started this video and was like, hey, like, God, just speak through me, whatever message you want me to share with these people, like, just help me do it in a way that's going to be impactful, right? I think it's also important to tie back the why behind your work when you're getting caught up in the details and getting caught up in the idea of whether it's going to be perfect or not. Go back to the why. I'm not doing this because I want to look cute on camera. I'm not doing this because I want people to see how aesthetic my room looks. I'm not doing it because I want people to think that I'm the smartest, best speaker in the world. I'm doing this because I want to share a positive message, and I want to create a space where people can feel seen and validated, and work on ways where we can better ourselves and offer advice and guidance in some way to do that, because I've been doing the work and I would love to be able to help other people that were in the place that I was in or are currently in the place that I'm in get through it. Like, that's why I'm doing it. So all of that other stuff, all of that ego-based stuff has to go out the window. The most important thing is the why. It's the impact. It's the meaning behind what you're doing. And I do think that when we are stuck in perfectionist mode, a lot of it is, thinking from this space of ego, which we also have to remove. I also think when you're not being present in the process, you're taking away the ability for you to harness that internal magic, that power that you would have if you allowed yourself to be in the present. So yeah, There's something to be said about being able to tap into your own flow state, and your flow state is really where the magic happens. Everything just comes easily, it's frictionless, and you'll come up with like little ideas that you wouldn't have thought of before, or that weren't really a part of the plan. Because when you're in planning mode, you're being strategic, you're being logical, it's very black and white. It's like this step follows this step. When you're in flow state, it's more like I'm letting this energy kind of pass through me, and I'm letting myself feel what feels right, and it's just a lot more intuitive. And I feel like when you're tapped into that space, magic really does happen. But if you're so focused on the future, which is essentially focusing on the end result, you're going to skip over that flow state and not be able to tap into that magic. And whatever it is you're creating, it's going to miss out on that. So that's another harmful consequence of perfectionism. We've already established that perfectionism and the behaviors that are associated with it oftentimes come from an ego-driven space. So now I want to talk solutions. How can we remove ourselves from this ego-driven space and work towards our goals with an equal amount of humility, confidence, and effectiveness? So I have a few ideas here. I'm going to kind of read off of this a little bit because I wrote a lot. The first thing, so overthinking and overplanning is what's going to keep you stagnant. Doing and taking action is what's going to create that momentum and is what's going to foster your growth. We can think and we can plan as much as we want, but if we're not doing anything, if we're not acting on the plan, again, we're wasting our own time and we're failing ourselves. We're not allowing ourselves to grow, and we're not allowing ourselves to experience the process to getting to that end result. Accept yourself. Accept your imperfections. Accept that you are not perfect because no one else is. And sometimes I have to say to myself too, like, you are putting these expectations on yourself and trying to be this perfect person and present in this perfect way. Who do you think you are? Like, why do you think you need to be perfect? Like, what is this obsession with this? No one else is perfect. And the thing is, I think a lot of times, I mean, it's either or, right? Sometimes we project the way that we feel about ourselves onto other people, but other times I feel like it's reverse, where I give other people a lot more grace than I give myself. And that's something that, you know, I think you learn throughout your self-love journey, like how to be compassionate towards yourself, what it means to unconditionally love and accept yourself, and how to give yourself grace, and doing that alongside having the need to grow and develop and change. Like, you can love yourself in this phase while you're imperfect, while you're not exactly where you want to be or who you want to be, or not, you know, succeeding in a specific area of your life the way that you want to be. You can still love yourself and accept yourself and appreciate where you are and still grow. It's not one or the other. You don't have to hate yourself until you get to this next level in your life, and then you can allow yourself to like yourself, you know? Like, allow yourself to like who you are and where you're at right now, and have faith and trust in yourself that you're going to get there through doing the work. I think the most important mindset shift that I made that has gotten me to even film this video today, because again, like, I would love to be this amazing like cinematographer. I would love to know how to do all the shots already, how to work with the best editing platforms, and, you know, like work with the most high-tech equipment, and have the freedom to basically like film wherever I want and just create magic on the screen. Like, those are things that I love and I would love to do, but I have to start from somewhere. And the biggest mindset shift for me has been understanding that the more attempts that I make at getting closer to that goal of perfection, the better I will become. And the more you'll learn about yourself too. You'll learn so much about where you are in your journey, right? You'll learn about what you're already really good at, what points you can develop on. You'll understand what your current limitations are. You may then begin to work on removing those limitations in the future. Sometimes it's physical limitations, sometimes it's financial limitations, sometimes it's ideological limitations. Like, what self imposed limitations are you putting on yourself that's stopping you from getting closer to your goal, right? I recently watched this video, and I'm going to put it here because I forgot the girl's name, but she's beautiful and amazing, and I loved the video. But basically, she talked about kind of the same concepts like perfectionism and like how to create even if you feel like it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to look exactly the way that you want it to. And she said, like, you know, you want to get creative and you want to get resourceful. And I think it's important that you're able to work with what you have. And so if you feel like, okay, I can't film a great YouTube video because I don't have X equipment, or I can't get to this next level in my career because I don't have this degree, or because I don't know these people, we need to get creative and come up with ways to grow and develop in those spaces without having the things that we think are what we need. You know, sometimes it's something completely different. Maybe it's not that you're not getting that promotion or that new role that just opened up, not because you don't have this degree or because you aren't close with the boss. Maybe it's because you haven't openly said, hey, I'm actually really interested in that position. I would love to apply for it. Can we come up with a roadmap and, you know, figure out what it is I need to do to be able to be eligible to get that position? Sometimes it's more of you just need to like openly say what it is you want to do. I think a lot of times when you're a perfectionist, you're stuck in your head about how you're perceived by other people. And I do think in the past, I've felt like it's humiliating for me to admit that I want something that I don't have yet. It's humiliating for me to admit that I actually don't know what I'm doing. None of us do. And the older that I've got, the more that I've been in spaces with really successful people, the more that I realize none of us really know what we're doing, and we're all just trying to figure it out, and we're all just trying to wing it. I'm not saying that none of us are skilled and that none of us don't have certain levels of access and privilege compared to others, but what I can say is most of us are winging it and doing the best that we can. And I think you have to give yourself that grace and understanding, that you're also a part of that group, you know? Look at this journey as a learning process. We're learning about ourselves. Like, as you create, you're not only learning about your creative limitations and, you know, even your creative goals, but you're also learning about yourself, right? Like, for me, I struggle a lot with patience. And I notice it a lot when I'm trying to do something creative. If it's not coming out the way that I wanted to right away, I struggle with trusting the process. Like, I'll love this video in this moment because I'm like, oh, the lighting is great. And, you know, I look cute, whatever. And then I go and put it on my computer and I'm like, oh my God, like this video is so boring. No one's going to want to watch this whole thing. Well, okay, how about you overlay some music? How about you add some graphics? Like, I sometimes can struggle to want to push forward with projects because it's not already where I want it to be, right? So, with that being said, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And now, knowing that about myself, I can now get myself to that next level by saying, I know initially this looks like crap, but you have the potential to make this something really cool and really interesting. And I need you to just be patient and trust yourself to be able to do this. And that's been really amazing for me because in the past, I just wouldn't post the damn video. I wouldn't go through with editing it. I would just film something else. And now it's like, no, this is what you have. This is what you put together. Try to make it the best version of what it can be right now. So yeah, but that's essentially it. Please, guys, I know it's really hard to allow yourself to not be perfect and to make mistakes. It can feel humiliating. It can feel like you're not good enough, but you are more than enough. You are adequate. You are loved. You are important. You are just trying to figure it out. You're a human being. And, you know, don't be afraid to fail loudly. At the end of the day, the people that may be judging you for failing loudly or for not being perfect, they're not happy with themselves and they wish that they could have the courage to fail as loudly as you are. I think the most successful people are the ones that aren't afraid to try or try and while they're afraid to do it. So to me, I think the most interesting people, and I'm going to try to move myself away from the word successful because I think that's obviously like a subjective word. But I would say the people that are the most inspiring and the most interesting are people that go after what they want and they do it even though they don't feel adequate yet. They don't feel like they're skilled enough or talented enough yet, but they try anyway. They don't let that insecurity or that fear of being judged or even their own judgments about themselves stop them from going after the thing, because the thing and trying to get there is more important than how they feel in the moment about where they are. So yeah, I hope that this has been a really helpful video for you guys. Please remember to give yourself permission to be a beginner. We all have to start somewhere, and just have faith that you're gonna do the work to get to where you want to be. And at the same time, take it a little bit easier on yourself. You're just trying to figure it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up, subscribe. My name is Crystal. If you want more videos like this, please leave a comment below. I would love to hear what topics you would like for me to explore next. I have a lot of ideas, but I'd rather hear what you guys want to talk about so I know how to cater my content to you and to make this a space where you are actively learning and growing and like looking forward to what I'm putting out. Because I just want to help in any way that I can. So yeah, I hope you guys have a beautiful, blessed day or night whenever you're watching this. And I hope you chase your dreams. Okay. Bye.